In this video, I'm going to talk about the recent decoding of the Templar magic square, and also a video that my friend Cynthia sent to me by a man who's using art history and etymology to talk about the two different realms. And I think that that is a serendipity for me. That one of my friends was sending me stuff about this Templar magic square, and another friend was telling me about these different realms that are based on waveforms and frequencies. The other thing I'm going to talk about in this video is those waveforms and the creatures in that more astral type realm that seem like ghost-like aliens, angels, interdimensionals, transdimensionals, all of that kind of stuff that feed on humanity. And when I pull both of these ideas together of the art historian who's using etymology and this other person who just decoded the Templar magic square, I pulled together the arepo part of A, the alpha and the highest, and O, omega and the lowest, and the REP, the rep part, means to stitch the alpha and the omega together through a fractal toroidal rotating whirlwind that one side of it has matter and the other side of it is more of a ghost realm. And that's where we are. Some of us can see the ghost realm, and they appear kind of see-through, kind of like a ghost. And those beings are the immortal beings that feed on us. So in a way, we're in a waveform prison based on this toroidal vortex. And like the whirlwind or the tornado in The Wizard of Oz, we kind of get deposited over into this other existence, but both of the existences are actually one experience. It's just that we can't see, and well, some of us can see, but we're not supposed to see that other realm. What's happening now also is because the sun, I believe, is actually the cold fusion toroidal rotation that affects us. The sun is changing, so some of us are starting to see. We have better telepathy. We're starting to feel into the magic. We remember parts of us that are long hidden from this realm, and that has been my process. So you might be experiencing that too. So I'm just going to put this up here so that you can see what the Templar magic square is and how to decode it. Okay, and there is an investigator that you can reference. He did a live stream on this yesterday, so let me just point out his information. His name is Martin Fleshman, and he, again, is using art history plus the decoding of this Templar's magic square to understand how the alpha and the omega are stitched together, which amazingly gives you the Templar's cross. Okay, so the Templar magic square. So in Pierre's work, which was a video that I shared that a friend of mine sent, Cynthia, in his work, he really understands already from the art history, and the Illuminati all are trained in this art history to understand the words and the symbols in art. And what he understood was that there were two creations. The first creation was mostly destroyed, and I understand that could be because the Draconians were quite unhappy with their status. The Anunnaki were using them as workers, and they complained and invaded and raped and everything. And so another realm was created for the prison experiment so that the Draconians or the reptilians no longer had to work as slaves for the Anunnaki. So that's the brief history of what happened here. And then Genesis tells us that this other creation basically was a cloning template. Now, this goes back into my mitochondrial DNA. So I now have the experience and the memory of being one of the original like water beings who was here, whose starfire, let's call it that, because I create my own light, was used to then create these further creations. So in some way, I think there are beings here, some of us, and I said it's a very small number, so I'm looking for that very small number. So anyone who doesn't understand my videos, that's okay. I'm not talking to you. So don't even suggest people watch my videos, because I'm not talking to them either. Okay, I think I've already found the people that I'm talking to, and this is for us to discuss. So this realm is a prison template based on a very few original starfire beings. And then somebody sent me, actually it was Jill sent me this quote: the hypostasis of the archons. Now the archons are in the ghost realm, and as I said, the archons are also the planets, but they're also what we call archangels, and they are completely demonic, cruel immortals that need us as their kind of farm experiment to feed on our emotion and also our secret ions or our secretions. And that's straight from my friend Cynthia. So I'm not brilliant by myself. I need all of us to figure this out together and figure out the mechanics and the magic of this realm in order to close it down. So the hypostasis of the archons, quote, as incorruptibility looked down into the region of the waters, her image appeared in the waters, and the authorities of darkness became enamored of her. So when we're talking about how did this all happen, there is a long story about this being the Lady of Life. And I think of her as like the Lady of the Lake, right? She comes up out of the lake and she's holding the sword for King Arthur. But the primary Grail line is actually from the Lady of the Lake, these beings who were connected to the water and made their own fire, made their own light, were literally the star fire within the waters. So this original being was called Nin Korsag, okay, and she was called the Lady of Life or the Lady of the Embryo, and she was the surrogate mother who then was fertilized by Enki, and Enki was a being of the water also. And these sacred waters, or what's called the cup of water of the Rosicrucians, goes directly into this man's work, who just came up with the decode of the Templar magic square. So these Rosicrucian women were used for their starfire to create this entire race. And then after that, they had to marry. So Cain married his half-sister, who was a purebred Anunnaki, and her name was Luluwa. And what's interesting is a lot of them were like Lily, Luluwa, Lilitu, Lileth, and there was all this like double L. So when the Hebrews are cursing Lilith, just know that Lilith was the mother of all. Just like Nin Korsag, the Lady of Life, she also had to marry Enlil. So Enki and Enlil apparently got offspring off of this one Lady of Life, or what's called the Lady of the Embryo, the Cup of Waters, the Dew Cup, and all of that. And then that lady, she was the first progenitor of even the first male that came onto this planet. So then you can understand why the Lady of the Lake is coming up and giving a sword, which is a phallus, to King Arthur. And she's called Nimue. Nimue allegedly raised Lancelot, the counterpart to Arthur, underwater in a castle underwater called Avalon. And so I'm going, oh my gosh, Avalon is not just behind the mists. Avalon is actually underwater. And so going further into that, again, it all has to come from the female line. So I've been reading some ancient books that I found from Scotland in like a vintage store recently. Again, it was the mother's line. They even had to marry like girl children that were bastard offspring of the king because it was the mother's line through the female line that the Holy Grail or the bloodline of the Grail. And what does the Grail mean? It's the origination race of the human race. But then what I understand is they had a second creation. And the second creation included these cloned beings out of Adam and what we would call Eve. So that Cain had to marry, which, you know, Cain was one of Eve's children, a half-sister who was a purebred Anunnaki. So it's the Anunnaki females. That's the Rh positive line. The Draconian line is an Rh negative line. And again, the Draconians were complaining about being slaves, but at the same time they were invaders, and they had to live in caves for about 3,000 years under the earth until they could come up and deal with this atmosphere. What I think is happening right now is, again, all this geoengineering is about the Draconians. They want an atmosphere that they feel comfortable in. And I'm not going to get into like, you know, pointing fingers at who's Rh positive and who's Rh negative, because there are beautiful people in all the groups. So the dragon groups have beautiful people, the Anunnaki groups have beautiful people, and both groups also have absolute psychopaths, conquerors, conquest-oriented, conquistadors like Donald Trump. All right. So that's the whole of it. And then the second creation of these Adamic races were for slavery and farming. So we're basically in a giant genetic experiment. And what they needed was to keep the starfire, the spark going through the female line. And basically the women are slaves here, absolute slaves. And it's a breeding program, as I said in the video I did with Katie last time, where they have to keep the breeding program going because it's through the sexual energy and through the sexual torture and through the sexual misery and the offspring of that they can keep the whole thing going. So that's when I also received a video from a wonderful conversation of a satanic ritual abuse person who from 6 to 12 years old, she was raped over 4,000 times. And it's by the evil, psychopathic elites of both the Rh positive and Rh negative lines. So we're just talking about people who could never take the light of man, could not bring their spark to the light in any way. And she says, I think her name is Annika, she does say in her video that while she was being harmed and raped, they were murdering other children next to her. So it is like a bloodletting and a rape. It's a blood sacrifice and a rape that these elites feed on. But who's feeding off of them? Which is what I wanted to get to with this Templar square that has been decoded. It says that the creator stitches together the alpha and the omega and comprehends the work within the whirlwind. And that is because there is literally two different realms here. And they are connected by this toroidal spin of two different waveform frequencies. One is not within most of our visible light spectrum, but it is right here within us. And it is here. It is like right here. It's not like in a separate location. It is here with us. And that's why when they appear to me, they look smoke-like, or you can actually see through them. So that's the other realm that is here with us. They can become physical. And the way that they can become physical is that they can shift through that vortex and they can come into the physical here with us, and they can look like anything they want. So that's why they are shifters, where they might be, you know, like a spider being in that dimension, and in here it's a woman or a man at that moment, you know, just in that human form. So that is being proven now by art historians, etymologists, and this guy who has put the art history together with the decoding of this Templar magic square. Now the word rep apparently means to stitch. So it stitches us together with the alpha, you know, these archons, and the omega, which is considered the humans. And that's why we get all these religions about how we're evolving and that somehow we're going to come up into the highest. And that is a lie. They know that we are permanently locked down in this, but maybe if you become demonic enough, you'll get taken up like Enoch and become Metatron. Like, you know, if you become in service to Yaldabaoth enough, you will become the highest. But for the most of us, that can never happen, because like Annika, who has been raped and abused so many times, you don't have to be part of a satanic ritual abuse where your mother's selling you to the elites. I have heard this from people who were raped, gang raped by the entire neighborhood of boys that tied a girl up at 5 years old and gang raped her. I've heard it from people who from 2 to 5 years old were raped by their own father. I've heard it, you know, a 5-year-old being raped by her uncle. But the thing is, what is inhabiting that person? And that's why I shared a Harold Klaus Vella video this week when he talked about the spider beings that are in the incision of the circumcision. The spider beings inhabit hospitals. They are like, they came to my bedroom after I had my baby at home, and that spider being was pissed. And that's in a video I did with my friend John that was called Tell Us Your Story of the Spider Beings. And she was absolutely pissed because there was no bloodletting, there was no nothing happened to my child. There were no incisions. I didn't take any medications. I just had a child at home. Nobody cried. Nobody screamed. It was over quite quickly, within 3 hours. And that is how babies should be born. Now, the circumcision ritual is where the trauma happens that the spider being can get into the circumcision incision. All right. In addition to that, if you go to a religious function, like say you're 7 months old and go to a rabbi, your parents are consenting through that religious ritual to let that spider being inhabit you and control your sex life. So I thought Harold Klaus Vella did an excellent talk with Claudia Stauber about this, where he chose to be impotent rather than have his sex drive run by a spider. Now, a lot of crazy people out there will say, oh, I can remove the spider being for you. I can remove your chakras. I can remove your nog. Nobody can do that but you. Nobody can do it for you. Nobody should do it for you, because then it's like in their little pouch of their stuff, you know, in their oversoul, they are collecting other people's chakras. Like, that's not a good idea, folks. So, I mean, I've heard people still say they're going to these practitioners to remove your chakras. Who did you just give your chakras to? Are you crazy? Do not let anybody do this for you. So the way Harold Klaus Vella did it was that he just decided he would rather be impotent than ever let that demon direct his sex life. And when Katie was talking about the male impulse to rape, it is literally quite like he said he could not control himself. He was aroused all the time to the point of not even wanting to come near a woman because he would lose his mind and he was aroused. So he tells a very truthful, honest story of what it's like to be in a boy's body, in a male, and have that spider directing your penis because they breed and they want more sexual activity and more sexual activity. So I call it the sexually transmitted demons, an STD, sexually transmitted demons. So if you are with a partner who is circumcised and he has that demon, and most do, they have to be willing to get rid of it. What it looks like in a male erection is if the erection is super hard, like violently hard, that's a demon. That person is possessed by a demon. A regular erection, an erection based in intimacy and love and pleasure that is based on actually identifying you as a human also, is not rock hard like that. Same thing with a vagina. If the woman has a demon in her vagina, it will be like rock hard. If the woman is not possessed by that serpent or that nog in the first and second chakra, the vagina will be quite soft. And actually, that's how I gave birth to my child, was I had already removed that demon so that I basically pushed twice and she was out, because the vagina or the penis should be your own, and the muscles involved in it should be under your direction. So that's a good indication of whether you have a demon or you still have the nog, the serpent, in your first and second chakra. As I said, when I was 25, before I even had a child, my kundalini came up and I saw this green and gold snake come out of the crown of my head, and it's in the astral, so it's, you have to be a seer to see it, but I viscerally felt it, like it came up through my head. And there is artwork of women with like a snake on top of their head, and I just grabbed it and pulled it out. And then all of that sexual energy is mine. This is very embarrassing to talk about, but like there's no hardness in my womb. And for Claude, the most recent weirdness was he had a concussion. He's listening, by the way. So he had a concussion, and that night I felt something come in the room, something that was scaring me. And suddenly he had a rock hard erection. And it was because something had taken him over, because he did not have his full consciousness because he had a head injury. So that gets into the next thing. If you are not within your own faculties, you've been watching too much TV, you've been watching too many videos, you've been watching Netflix, then you have something else controlling you. All right? There's something else in you. Also radio, music, listening to Gaga, seeing Gaga. I mean, yes, one of my friends sent me another, pop star, and I couldn't even watch 2 minutes. And I was like, people watch this? Like, holy crap, people, do you not know what is going on? So it's very hard for me to watch anything like that, because those things are jumping through the black mirror into you. All right, so that's the other realm. That's the astral realm. It literally is here, and it can come through and feedback loops through the black mirror, which is the screen that I'm looking at right now. So all of that stuff has got subliminal acoustic manipulation, and all the Disney stuff has like people with erections, watch the cartoons. It's there, and it is subliminally programming our children. All right, so if you have a spider being because you have a circumcision, you can get taken over by that sexual impulse. And Harold Klaus Vella just was like, I won't. I would rather be impotent. I don't want my thing to work anymore. And for a while, after making that declaration and confirming that he nullified any contract that his parents made and any religious thing that ever happened to him, and that trauma of the circumcision, then he was impotent for a while. And then you basically have to just actually connect with a human and don't watch any porn and don't go on dating sites or whatever weird stuff is going on out there, and actually connect with the human, and then your body will be soft and will submit to what I consider innocent love, okay, and intimacy. So that's my advice on that. Do not go out there for someone else to remove it for you. That cannot happen. And then they have your bag of tricks connected to them, which may not actually be disconnected from you. No way. You've got to do this yourself. And that's why sovereignty is the key. You can do it, and you are responsible for doing it, and no one should do it for you. So after my last video, some charlatans contacted me and said, oh, I removed a reptilian egg from somebody. Show me the reptilian egg. It's just like people who say that they can remove your nanotechnology. Show me my live blood results right now. Give me a dark microscopy examination of my blood right now and show me that you removed my nanotechnology. So don't believe any of that, because I heard from a client this week who worked with Tony Sayers, and she saw, like, he's got all that stuff connected to him, and who is he? You have to realize this. People jump right on the session bandwagon. You have to do it. Even with the astrology, I'm offering all the videos for free on Vimeo, Galactic Astrology. You can study your own astrology. You don't need me. I hold books up. I have worksheets that I hold up. Here's the book to read. Here's the worksheet. Do it yourself. Study your own astrology. So really, anyone who wants you to be free is giving you the tools of how you are sovereign enough to be free. So be very careful about the charlatans out there, folks. Be very careful. If I'm going to remove my nog, I'm going to remove it. Me. Okay? If there's some kind of spider entity, I'm going to remove it. And my partner had to remove his by really acknowledging it was there. And when he acknowledged that it was there, then it can't take you over. Another client of mine told me that there's the bedroom eyes. The bedroom eyes. She sent me a picture, which, by the way, my client friend, I deleted because it was so scary. I could not even look at that image. But the bedroom eyes are kind of glassy. They're kind of glazed looking, almost like something in the eyes is taking you over. If somebody looks like that, get away from that person. So we were at the hardware store recently, and I can always tell, like, a woman with that bedroom eye, like sinister serpent spider woman vibe. And boy, she was looking at Claude, and I put my body between her and Claude, because those spider women, they got the bedroom eyes. They're very dangerous. And I could feel it. Like, I can feel it in my chakras, like she's got sexual demons attached to her. So, first is she has to admit that they're there. Second is she has to give up her sexuality and maybe be impotent or celibate for a while until she can really be responsible for loving somebody for the person that they are and loving them even without having sex, okay, but on a soul level. So this is big, big work, folks, because the first realm that is the waveform frequency that is not solid are the feeders, and they need us to be blind to this. They need to possess us like an entity or demonic possession. Spiders, snakes, all kinds of weird poltergeists are in that realm, and they can't leave, and they don't want you to leave. So the next thing is, if people are out there making videos and they're not concerned about transhumanism, if they are not talking about nanotechnology and they're just like, oh, you're the holy bloodline, that's a key right there. You want to get away from that group, get away from those people. Because the whole idea of specialness, again, smacks of some kind of deception. Nobody's more special than anybody, no matter what your mitochondrial DNA is, no matter what your ancestry is. Everybody in the whole multiverse is beloved. So there's no like hierarchy. But in this situation, we have a second realm, which is called the Omega realm. So the Alpha is tied to the Omega. It's stitched. That's that word stitching, like Zechariah stitching. When he was writing all that stuff about Nibiru, he was stitching a certain language that people found fault with, but you weren't reading it as a stitched, like, coded explanation. And I'm going to tell you something else. This second realm where we are in form and we are humans, some of us, they really don't want to leave because we are the starfire. And it's not like there's a hierarchy. I'm not saying anyone's above. But those are the ones who really have to pay attention, because those are the ones also who can take down this realm, because everyone is a clone of you. And I've talked about that before, like the oversouls, which there are very few of, there are millions of clones of you. All you have to do is get yourself out of here, not the millions of clones of you. You're the only one responsible. That's why you do not need to refer anyone to my videos. You don't. Don't share my videos, because I think I've already found the people that I'm talking to, all right? And the rest are going to be like, oh, she's a crazy woman. Well, yeah, because you believe what's on TV. Anyways, I got to keep going. So the sun, as it is the cold fusion, I believe, in this realm that creates the separation. That's why when you listen to the Draconians, they say they have to go through the sun. Not me. I go directly to the void, to the nothingness. I'm not going through that cold fusion sun, because then I'm just going to end up on the other side of this realm in their waveform of the astral. There's no way I'm doing that. Okay, so let me see how I want to wrap this up. There's another person that told me this week that there's a doctor somebody out there that is reading the original cuneiform of the Bible. And he is insisting that their real home is Nibiru, and that they are waiting for Nibiru to leave to take the good ones out of here on the ship Nibiru. I would say I would get as far away from anyone saying anything like that as you can. How did you get here in the first place? If you are one of the starfire women who were used to create the entire human race, if you were a lady of the lake, or what's called the lady of the embryos, that had to give birth to millions of clones and feed them your starfire, your original light, how did you get here? Nibiru. And if you get back on Nibiru, which is Wormwood, which is the ship of the Draconians, they're going to use you to create some other realm in some other place. There's no ship you want to get on. The only place I am going to exit is through the void. And my idea, now definitely having confirmation from this Templar magic square, is to reverse the toroidal spin and pull it back through the void. Pull it back through what? You can use the example of the black pearl, or the black mirror, or the black hole, and pull it back through. And when you leave, I believe all your clones will be free also. So it's that weird. I don't even know what to call this. Do we call it the Templar Magic Square, or the Starfire Women, or how to get like the snake entity out of your first and second chakra, how to get the sexually transmitted demons of the spider beings out of your circumcision? Because if you are having sex with someone who has a spider, you have a spider too. All right? And you know what spiders do? They eat each other. You know, the female eats the man. So there's a real hatred in the sexual act if you have a spider being. Again, it's through your own declaration that you are not allowing that thing to be part of your body, and revoking any consent from that your parents made during any of those religious rituals that were done to you. Okay, my dears, bye-bye for now.